Welcome to this explainer. So today we're diving into a piece of source material that tackles something pretty much every professional, creative, or, just generally ambitious person struggles with at some point. Let me ask you, have you ever felt completely crushed by the pressure to just constantly hustle? Like you have to be grinding away at your goals 24/7 until you literally can't keep your eyes open? Well, you are definitely not alone. Today, we're going to dismantle that super intimidating and honestly totally exhausting myth of hustle culture. We're unpacking a brilliant concept called the mastery of routine consistency. Over the next few minutes, we'll explore the actual mechanics of getting things done, and you'll see why the real secret to success is so much more forgiving and way more effective than what society tries to sell us. I mean, we all know the hustle bro, right? They're the ones bragging about 20-hour work days, practically surviving on pure adrenaline, zero sleep, and loud motivational speeches. And sure, it looks incredibly impressive for about 5 days. But then, inevitably, comes the vanishing act. They crash, they burn out hard, and they completely fall off the map for an entire month just to recover. It's this wildly erratic, totally unpredictable cycle. They push themselves to the absolute extreme, completely drain their physical and mental batteries, and then need weeks of doing absolutely nothing just to get back to normal. Actually, scratch that, they aren't even getting back to normal, they're just trying to survive. It's an absurd way to operate, but for some reason, society praises this frantic sprinting as the ultimate badge of honor. And that right there brings us to the core problem. This whole grind set mentality, it's a massive trap because exhaustion is not a strategy. Relying on these massive heroic bursts of effort is just going to leave you stressed out, overwhelmed, and it completely derails your long-term goals. Just think about it for a second. If your plan requires you to sacrifice your health and your sanity just to make a little progress, well, that's a terrible plan. The hustle trap completely tricks you into thinking that if you aren't actively suffering, you just aren't working hard enough. But the reality, operating in a state of perpetual exhaustion destroys the quality of your work and absolutely guarantees, that you're going to hit a wall. So the source material offers this really profound shift in perspective. It gives us this incredibly calming reality check. Staying consistent is easy, actually. Now, I know that might sound literally impossible if you're currently stuck deep in the hustle trap, but this quote directly challenges that prevailing myth that reaching your goals demands endless suffering. The whole argument here is that simply showing up doesn't have to be this agonizing, monumental battle of willpower every single day. When you finally strip away that heavy pressure to do an entire month's worth of work in one afternoon, the simple act of being consistent suddenly becomes lightweight. It becomes manageable and, yeah, actually easy. This is where we need to shift our focus from all that motivational noise and look at the actual numbers. Consistency always wins. Always. It's this modest, steady approach that plays the underdog, but ultimately slays the giant, intimidating hustle monster. If you've ever felt like you just don't have the stamina to compete with a 20-hour-a-day crowd, guess what? You don't need to. You just need to show up a little bit, repeatedly. Because when we look at the long game, which, let's be real, is the only game that actually matters, whether you're writing a book, building a business, or learning a new skill, the math heavily favors the person who paces themselves. It's basically the compounding interest of effort. So let's look at how this math actually plays out in the real world. The data here paints such a clear picture. Just compare the 6-day-a-week burnout approach with a 2-day-a-week consistent approach. Think about someone who goes incredibly hard almost every single day. Inevitably, they crash. They lose all their momentum, they have to constantly start over from scratch, and that results in lower overall output. On the flip side, the source mathematically proves that committing to just 2 days a week and actually sticking to it week after week, month after month, yields a significantly higher overall output over time. It's a total game changer. The consistent worker isn't losing entire weeks to recovery. Their progress just continually, quietly stacks up. The crucial, absolute magic number here is 2. Just 2 days a week. Contrast that incredibly grounded, achievable target with the overwhelming dread of a daily 20-hour grind. When you tell yourself, hey, I only need to show up and execute on this specific goal twice a week, the resistance in your brain just drops completely. It completely removes the intimidation factor. Because really, anyone can find the time, the energy, and the focus just 2 times within a 7-day window. By simply lowering that barrier to entry, you guarantee a much, much higher success rate over the span of a year. Okay, so let's turn all this math into some highly actionable advice. How do we actually make sure we hit that target without relying on sheer brute force motivation? The source material provides this fantastic, super practical answer. It's called the built-in routine. This is the core method that makes long-term consistency actually feasible for normal human beings. People with busy lives, tons of distractions, and energy levels that naturally fluctuate. The built-in routine is the perfect antidote to the hustle trap because it completely bypasses the need to constantly hype yourself up just to sit down and do the work. So what is it exactly? The built-in routine is the psychological method of attaching your new work to a non-negotiable, pre-existing daily habit. This definition is absolutely vital. You are not trying to carve out some brand new, isolated block of time in your busy day and then fighting tooth and nail to defend it. Instead, you're looking at the things you already do every single day without fail, and you're just piggybacking your new task right onto them. It relies entirely on leveraging your existing momentum rather than forcing you to generate new willpower out of thin air. Because willpower, it's a finite resource. It drains as the day goes on. But your existing habits, those are deeply wired into your brain. The steps to do this are almost shockingly simple. First, you just identify an existing, non-negotiable habit, something like taking your morning shower or eating dinner. You don't need a fiery motivational speech to convince yourself to eat dinner, right? You just eat. Second, you stack your new work directly onto it. So the very moment you finish dinner, you sit down for your 30 minutes of writing or coding or studying. By linking this new task to that perfectly established anchor, the meal itself becomes your automatic trigger. Your brain says, "Oh, I just finished dinner, therefore it is time to do my task." It completely removes the agonizing decision-making process. And the absolute brilliance of this method is the ultimate end goal, making it feel weird to skip your work. Seriously, think about how physically uncomfortable it feels if you try to go to bed without brushing your teeth. It just feels wrong, right? Well, by tying your work to a fundamental habit like eating or showering, over time, your brain links those two activities together as one single unbreakable sequence. Eventually, if you eat dinner and then try to skip your targeted task, the absence of the work is going to feel just as weird and unnatural as skipping the meal itself. You have essentially tricked your own brain into making productivity your default state rather than an exhausting exception. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to really ponder this. Are you building a routine or are you just building burnout? It's time to stop aiming for total exhaustion and start aiming for real, sustainable consistency. Pick an existing habit today, attach a small 2-day-a-week goal to it, and just watch how incredibly quickly the math starts working in your favor. Thanks so much for exploring this fascinating source material with me today.